My name is Bill Blume. I am the author of The Dragon Spy, as well as many other fantasy novels. Probably the books I'm most well known for are the books in my Gideon Keep Vampire Hunter series. This is the first book, Gideon's Hunt. This was a pretty simple book to write. For Gideon's Hunt, I essentially pantsed the majority of that book, meaning that I didn't really have a big plan for it. I knew the ending I was aiming for. I figured that out when I got to about the third chapter of the book. And so at the end of each chapter, I would simply ask myself, all right, what logically should happen next? And what do I need to happen to get me to the end of the book I'm aiming for? And that pretty much wrote the first book for me. And it worked. Then I sat down to write the second book. My original concept for that book was, all right, Gideon's taking out this vampire coven in his hometown of Richmond. Vampires on the East Coast notice this. They want this hunter taken out, but they don't know who the hunter is. And so they hire a vampire who specializes and hunting vampire hunters. The book was going to be told from 2 points of view, both Gideon's and June's. But then I went to my publisher and told them what I was going to do, and they went, no, we prefer one point of view in our books. That created a lot of problems for me that I had to solve. The biggest issue was I needed Gideon to find out much earlier in the story that there was a vampire hunting him, because the original tension in the book was going to come from the fact that he didn't know, but you, the reader, would, because you were getting chapters from June's point of view. So I outlined not just what Gideon was doing, but I was outlining what June was doing off page through the insane timeline, so that I could figure out places in which Gideon would unknowingly be having to react to the moves that June is taking against him. And that made for a great book. It paid off, and I couldn't have been happier with the result. Now, that is going to be where things take a weird turn for me as a writer, because I ended up writing a lot of books since that time, but I would not have another book published until 2023. And the reason was because I just was writing stuff that, while the books were good, they weren't finding homes. And that's how I ended up using IngramSpark to put out my debut adult fantasy, West of Apocalypse. The inspiration for this book actually goes back to this book. The first book my wife ever lent me when we started dating in high school in the early 1990s. Stephen King's The Gunslinger is a very weird book told in, I think, 5 acts. And they roughly stand on their own. And when I wanted to write West of Apocalypse, I was like, I want to start a story in a similar place to King's book. And I want to do like a 6-part novelette series. And each story is going to stand on its own, but all together, they're going to tell a cohesive story. To make that work, you've got to map it out. There's no way not to. And it's one of the most heavily plotted things I'd ever done up to that point. And so I sat down and I went, all right, I'm going to write a few paragraphs of what needs to happen in each act of this book. And it paid off. Now, the biggest accomplishment I've had as an author has been very recent, and that is with The Dragon Spy. This was a book that was born out of 2 passion projects that I wanted to write in the young adult market. One of them was I wanted to write a spy novel. I got the idea that it would be really cool to do a Cold War spy novel as a young adult, and I wanted to figure out a way to make the teenager a spy without the story being campy. I wanted to capture the whole Cold War thriller feel of John le Carré and Tom Clancy. And the solution to make the teenager the spy ended up being marrying it with my other passion project within that market, which was to do a superhero novel. And so essentially, I was writing X-Men meets Tom Clancy and John le Carré. And the reason I say this is one of my biggest accomplishments as an author is because it's landing well with readers. I couldn't be more happy to have it getting out there and getting noticed. IngramSpark has been a big help in getting that book distributed and getting attention to it with the media that I've been posting online about it and getting redistributed by IngramSpark. I've been very fortunate in my career to have a lot of people support me. Fountain Bookstore here in Richmond has been a huge supporter of me. That's part of the reason I ended up with IngramSpark. I wanted to be able to have books that could be friendly to indie bookstores. And that means being able to be distributed through Ingram, because that's where bookstores get their books. And that has allowed me to reach readers and to connect with bookstores and be friendly to those markets. I am thrilled to be writing. I'm thrilled to be able to get these stories out there. And I hope that you are able to find your own path, your own journey with the stories you are writing and reading.